Breakout shot, Chapter 9. George kills the messenger. George pressed the needle into his arm, the only place he had ever learned to do it, and there was the thread of blood lifting into the syringe volume. He pushed the yellow volume into his vein and pulled the belt loose from his arm, and it hit him where it always did, the back of the neck, and he felt it then, vitreous life, unfiltered and endless yet fragile, and flowing through him now, and him part of it, like two beings, himself and his other self, connected in blissful chaos, needles still hanging from his arm. He tilted back his head and grinned wide, but with no teeth. Strange, and not for anyone else. It's all going to end. We're all going to die, and he was who he was. Nothing more. Pure bliss. When he came back to, he was still in the motel room. It was late in the night. He laid back and drifted in and out of consciousness and saw a recurring image in his mind. He saw Tong lurking nearby in a car or a van maybe, the element of surprise there with him. George was on high alert. He had heard things. He looked left. He looked right. He looked long at each passing car and was nervous coming and going. He came back from the grocery store late, just before it closed, and he was there under the white light with only the checkout clerk, who hardly looked at him, just the way he liked it to be, no one noticing him. One way or another he was no one, nothing but the shadow and the silence he moved through. He was glad to be here, in his lair as he thought of it, his hopefully hidden lair, where he hopefully would not be killed leaving at the crack of dawn tomorrow morning. He shook his head. Fuck, I don't want to die, he thought. He pressed his thumbs against his temples and breathed and wondered if life was really worth all this trouble. Tong had been quiet at first. George eventually sat at a table in the green room in the aftermath of the robbery. Stain on the floor still round and dark red, the sticky muck of it. But first he rolled the body into the tarp by kicking the rotund corpse, pushing it over and over, turning it into the tarp with his foot, again and again, rolling the dead priest. Paulie helped him carry and drag the dead weight to the trunk of the car. They dumped it in a rough patch of land down east, out past the furthest point between two casinos, exit ramps that lead to nowhere, empty corners and boarded windows and plenty of dead space in between. Lighter fluid. Burn the body. He was tilting then into his mind, the stress of it. It could all come back to him now. He was involved. His game was ruined. Who would come to a game where a man was shot and killed, he wondered. Bad for business. He would have to start at a new location, distance himself from himself, and run it through somebody else. It wouldn't work. He was ruined. He put his head into his hands. His regulars now had post-traumatic stress disorder. He smoked and made phone calls with the rotary on the table in front of him. His head was floating. He had not ate or drank water in a day's time. Tong was behind this, and he would pay for it with blood. George called around, asking questions, but always quickly moved on to accusations. Somebody knows something, and that somebody's going to tell me, he told the person on the other end of the phone. He could not place who he had called. It could be anyone. He blamed Tong. They hung up on him, and he vowed to kill whoever it had been. He wiped his forehead and rubbed his eyes. He had to eat and drink, and he was exhausted when he left the green room early the next morning, and Tong's guys were there. Just as he was lighting a smoke, he dipped his head and heard the sound of the car engine, and from the window a shot missed, and he went down and towards the parked cars, ducking and hustling over to avoid more fired shots. The car sped off and George had his own gun out, but the street was silent now, strangely so, as if time had stopped and he were dead. He felt his body with his hand to see if he were shot, even checking his head. George could see something in the look Tong had given him the last time they had spoke. Big mistake, said the look. Almost shocked, but not in offense, but more like how careless George was with his own life. Tong's eyes like scales weighing his heart against a drifting feather. George was cool, but later he could still see the look, especially in moments like this, when he was high on heroin or drunk on beer or trying to sleep. It ruined the getting high, but he still did it, of course. Tong's look, a look that could only come from a man who had killed many people. He felt it in the dark corners of the rooms he went through, in the alleys he passed, and the reflections he gazed into, and through the windows he stood in front of, for less than even a moment, but there nonetheless. Like a ghost, only there then gone before seen. The look took George to a place where his life hung in the balance, a look he had never stared into before. Tong's eyes like gateways into a shadow realm, where the rivers flowed with blood. Something stinks, he thought. He was being literal. Something stunk. Maybe something in the corners of piled clothing, or the tables of littered trash and full ashtrays, or piles of wet towels and wrappers and bottles strewn. But the extra layer of meaning that could be attributed to his words did not escape him. Indeed, he thought, something stinks. A chill shivered up his spine and into his brain. George would need to get lucky. He had always been lucky throughout his life. He felt it would continue until now. Now he understood. He had once had a confidence in it. He felt he stood over the world, a charmed existence. Tong was a maniac, but George didn't know all the details at the time. He felt glad to know now, though it had ruined his life. Better a ruined life than dead. Better to see death there ahead of you than never see it coming at all. There was a chance he could come out of this, but he worried his luck had run out after crossing paths with Tong. Tong was known for his torture chamber. People whispering, but still reliable sources. George did not want to find out if it was true. He understood what it was to want to hurt people, and Tong had that want in spades. Damn it, thought George. A story that one could hear in the alleys and pool halls and card rooms throughout the city. Tong throwing a man into the wheels of a passing train. Whichever of his men found the largest body part afterwards won a cash reward. A final begging scream, then the sound of flesh and bone, and like a big bag of fluid popping, bursting forth all at once. The train roaring by, then going off around the bend, blood misting through the air, the ghoulish cheers all around, the train's terrible sound in the distance now, Tong grinning, holding up the cash, and stepping onto the tracks in the aftermath. Oh, look, an arm, a leg. Could anyone find the head? An intact skull is $10,000 bonus, Tong said. Put it on my mantle. He alone laughed. No one would dare interrupt him, even to laugh along. Not a word or a laugh, and not even a gesture. He was the minister of death, and they were his congregation, and he did put the skulls on his mantle. One time the man was thrown legs first, and he was cut in half. He screamed, still alive for a moment. Coherent, but only for a moment, and only a word repeated, the, then lifeless and still, his head intact, eyes staring to the heavens. Tong was thrilled. He could taste the blood in the air and smell the burnt flesh, singed and metallic. He stood again on the tracks. Behold the Lord of Suffering, here in this world to enjoy the pain of it, even just for a moment, in the gaps between his own suffering and twisting unraveling. The blood mist like a summer sprinkler all around him. He breathed it in, always a part of him now. George had killed before, but with the barrel of a gun pointed, or the point of a blade thrusted. A formal kill, clean and rigid, a casual pull of the trigger, and the loud pop, and that was that. George came to, laid backwards, then sat up, his feet already on the floor. It was very early in the morning now, before dawn, time for him to go. He went to the sink and splashed water onto his face and drank from the tap. He combed his hair and looked into the mirror. It was time to go. He had to psych himself into it. He hesitated and stood in the window watching. Then he went through the door and out into the street, and it was silent, and then a car came up the road, and he stood there in front of the door for a moment, frozen. This could be it. This could be the end. He did what he told himself he wouldn't do, stood like a deer frozen there on the sidewalk, and saw himself with holes blown through him for a moment. But then the car went down the road, and all was quiet again. He went across the street and got into his car, a green sports car that these days he wished was less flashy, less noticeable. He started the car, pulled off the curb and drove, his eyes looking all around through the shadows and the blue streetlight. He sighed deep, and his breath hung in the cold darkness and the blue light. He drove through the dense streets, parked cars packed tightly along, occasionally broken by the gap of an alleyway, and down the narrow alleyways, shadows danced and smoke rose, with the red brake lights in the distance, looming like ghostly eyes in the shadowed passages. George went to the casino and put money on the roulette table, money on the blackjack table, money in the panty line of a waitress, then more lines, white powder up his nasal passages in the bathroom stall. Eyes met his as he moved through the casino under glittering chandelier light. They couldn't kill him here, could they? The euphoria of cocaine and booze together, all like a slow storm in his veins, left him without a care in the world. Let them kill him. He would be born again. Time slipped away as it does, with eternal blackness no more than a moment away at any time. He felt more than he ever had before. He felt alive and about to die, the edge of the razor. When the money was all gone, he staggered out to his car. He found himself later at a card game in a city basement, with zebra print carpeting and a stripper pole to the side. A desk with a man with a thin goatee and a blue jacket, with a nod of the head, and George told the man he was there to gamble. He said it loud, and some turned their heads and others played their hands, and there was talking and chips rattling and cards being dealt all around. He bought in on credit and played fast under the neon lights. He played loose, frequently betting or raising and needing more and more chips. The floor man brought chips to him and his debts grew. The action was fast. He made some good hands but got unlucky. It was turning, he thought. His luck was flipping on him, and now he was cursed. The thought twisted and turned in his head like a ghoul hand twisting his guts, and he felt he were drowning in it, in the urge to gamble it all away, every penny that was left, a desire to lose it all and die and maybe get a second chance. He went on into the night a wreck, and the professionals at the table noticed and tried to play hands with him. They fought aggressively for his money. He felt it. He was the mark. In the alley, having a smoke after, he was unsure and indifferent to how much he owed, his blood boiling and his skin with an uncomfortable film of old sweat and dirt. Clothes sticky against his skin, up all night gambling. He stands smoking alone in the alley, and when he sees another player come out under the down glare of the streetlight, George goes over like a spider on a web and strikes up a conversation. "My game, the green room, was robbed," he told the man. "Yeah, I know. Everybody knows," said the man. George smoked. He studied the man's face. "You have the face of a man who knows something more. A soothsayer of sorts. Hear anything strange? Any rumors you can tell me?" The man looked at him and looked off and shook his head. "Ah, see," George pointed. "There is something there. You have a tell." He took a few hundreds and folded them between his fingers. "Come on, man, out with it. Any thoughts on the matter?" The man looked at the money. Then he reached for the money and George pulled his hand back. "Well, how about you tell me what you know first, buddy?" He put the money out again. "Okay, I'll tell you what I know. I know there's a couple of guys who play around town. One of them is named Keith, and some other guy who plays around town. Big wide guy. What's his name? Darby. They all left town to go to Vegas in the middle of the night. Strange timing, but then again, Vegas is the type of place people go to abruptly." The man reached out again for the money. George pulled his hand back. "Did they now?" "Yeah, I heard that and I thought that's interesting." "Any idea where they might be staying?" asked George. The man thought. "Well, I know Darby mentioned before he has a brother that lives out there and plays cards around Vegas. He said it one night when we were playing here, I remember." George's eyes lit up in the hollow, dark circles of his skull. "Any idea where he stays out in Vegas?" "Outside the city limits. Lives somewhere out in the desert." George put the money into the man's hand and smiled. "Thank you very much, sir." He moves towards the man, and then in a flash, from out of his pocket, he is stabbing the man, fast and rapidly, lips and teeth clenched, hand moving so fast, stabbing him maybe a dozen times or more, the man's smile disappearing, and him trying to make noise but unable, spitting and sputtering and grabbing helplessly for George as he stabbed and stabbed away at him. He took the blood-slick money from the man's flapping and frantic hands, the man clutching and grabbing, desperately trying in vain to not die. George pushed the man aside and went off into the night. The thrill of it, he felt electric. "Fuck that motherfucker," he thought. "Everybody knows it but you now, dead motherfucker." He would find who did this. He would settle the score. Fuck them. Fuck them all. He would fucking kill them all, thought George.